If you've ever seen an image of Fort Boyard, you immediately know it. It's this massive, oval-shaped stone monolith sitting defiantly right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, just completely surrounded by crashing waves. But the story of how it actually got there and what it was originally meant to be is a tale of pure madness, massive ego, and some really unbelievable engineering. Think about it. How on earth does an impossible military megastructure turn into, of all things, the world's most famous family game show set? It's a staggering contradiction. To really understand this wild twist of fate, we have to pull away from the bright TV lights and the cheering contestants and travel back over 300 years to the deadly serious, war-torn origins of the site. Section 1. The Impossible Fortress. So, rewind to the 17th century. A shifting underwater sandbank known as Lange de Boyard catches the attention of French rulers. It sat right in the strait between the islands of Aix and Oleron, and because it was 15 feet underwater during low tide and constantly shifted around, it was incredibly dangerous for passing ships. But military leaders, they actually saw an opportunity. The experts of the time, however, thought they were completely out of their minds. Vauban, who was basically the most legendary engineer of his era, gave King Louis XIV this stark, almost mic-drop warning. Sir, in my opinion, it would be easier to catch the moon with your teeth than to undertake such an enterprise in such a place. It perfectly captures the sheer hubris of this idea. Building a heavy stone fortress on a moving sandbank, underwater, it was considered absolute, undeniable madness. Section 2. Defending the Arsenal. Now, to King Louis XIV, defying nature to build on that sandbank wasn't just some royal ego trip, though, with the Sun King, proving he ruled land and sea was definitely a factor. But it was actually an absolute strategic necessity. The nearby Charente estuary housed France's greatest military-industrial shipyard, the Rochefort Arsenal. Built in 1666, it was this unprecedented complex where they built over 500 French warships. To protect it from the English Navy, France built a coastal ring of fire with shoreline forts. But the Boyard sandbank was the one glaring, unprotected gap. Because cannons back then had a pretty limited range, English ships could safely sail right through the middle of the channel, totally out of reach from the mainland guns. And things got really real in the year 1757. A devastating English raid actually destroyed nearby defenses. A massive fleet arrived and proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that this gap had to be closed at any cost. The survival of the entire French naval fleet depended on it. Section 3. Man versus the ocean. Enter Napoleon Bonaparte in 1801. Flush with war spoils, he truly believed his armies, his wealth, and his engineers could just conquer the Atlantic Ocean. So, he reignites the project. But man, it took multiple empires, kings, and republics just to get the foundation to stay above the waves. Napoleon kicks things off in 1801, but the work is violently abandoned in 1809 when a terrifying British attack using explosive fireships totally halted construction. The project just sat dead in the water until King Louis Philippe restarted it in 1841. It was finally officially finished in 1866 under Napoleon III. That is a brutal 65-year struggle against the sea. To really wrap your head around how badly they failed early on, consider this. During the harsh winter of 1807, workers had painstakingly transported massive blocks of stone out from the mainland, dumping them onto the sandbank to create a foundation, and the ocean just fought back. 78,000 cubic meters of heavy stone simply sank into the shifting sand and completely vanished. Mother Nature just swallowed years of grueling, dangerous labor whole. So how do you actually beat the ocean? Well, it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution in the 1840s brought advanced materials that they could pull it off. Engineers worked frantically during the tiny windows of low tide to level out those sunken stones. Then, they submerged 10-foot wooden boxes filled with a brand new, fast-setting hydraulic cement that locked the foundation in place before the high tide could wash it away again. On top of that, they used specialized Curzene limestone for the walls, which is this magical material that actually hardens and becomes incredibly dense when it's exposed to salt water over time. And the scale of the finished structure, it's just breathtaking. They successfully built an artificial island measuring 223 feet long, 100 feet wide, towering 95 feet above the water. The outer walls were over 6 feet thick. And they really had to be because this structure had to survive extreme Atlantic storm waves, hitting with a pressure of 30 tons per square meter. To put that into perspective, that is literally like two full-grown elephants crashing into every single square yard of the fortress at once. As you might guess, battling the ocean does not come cheap. When it was finally finished in 1866, the total cost reached 8.6 million francs. Adjusted for inflation, that is equivalent to a staggering 2 billion euros in today's money. 2 billion euros for an artificial island of stone. Section 4, Victory and Immediate Obsolescence. Right at the moment of their ultimate engineering triumph, an incredibly cruel twist of fate rendered this entire 2 billion euro megastructure completely and utterly useless. During the 65 years it took to build the fort, artillery technology sprinted ahead at lightning speed. The invention of rifled artillery barrels and highly explosive melinite powder meant cannon firing ranges increased tenfold. The whole purpose of the fort was to cover the middle of the channel, right? Well, suddenly, coastal batteries on the mainland could easily shoot straight over the water and hit any passing ship themselves. The middle of the ocean fort was instantly, embarrassingly redundant. Talk about a profound disappointment. The grand vision of a massive stone warship, bristling with 74 heavy cannons, firing from 3 enclosed decks, never materialized. The actual reality? Only 30 cannons were ever installed, and 0 shots were ever fired in warfare. Not one. It was officially abandoned by the military in 1913, serving only as an incredibly expensive white elephant, and its iron guns were eventually ripped out and sold off for scrap metal. Which brings us to Section 5, Resurrection on Television. For decades, the fortress just sat empty, looted, and left to slowly crumble into the sea. In 1962, the ruin was essentially given away at auction to a Belgian dentist for a mere 43,000 euros. He did almost nothing with it. But then, legendary TV producer Jacques Antoine saw the rotting, vine-covered structure featured in a 1960s film called The Adventurers. He instantly recognized its magical, legendary potential. In 1988, he bought the fort and brokered an absolute genius deal. He gave the property to the local government for just €1. In exchange, he got exclusive filming rights, and the government agreed to fund the massive structural repairs needed to keep it from collapsing. By 1990, the very first broadcast of the game show, Fort Boyard, hit the airwaves. The bizarre contrast of the space today is just staggering. A brutal, hostile military prison designed to pack in 264 garrison men and survive naval bombardments was suddenly packed with 140 TV crew members holding 35 different jobs. Instead of artillerymen, you had caterers, set decorators, security guards, and animal handlers, all living and working inside a 19th century war machine. Now, turning an isolated stone block into a functional 20th century broadcast studio required some incredible logistical acrobatics. They couldn't exactly just walk inside. They had to construct an offshore docking station where boats could tie up, and then use a basket airlift to literally crane contestants and crew up into the fort. They had to thread massive, complex cable networks for the cameras everywhere. They even had to build an emergency helipad on top so they could fly people out during sudden storm evacuations. And to make it even harder, strict heritage rules meant the crew was absolutely forbidden from drilling a single hole into the historic stone. Imagine rigging an entire show with that limitation. But all that effort created a true global phenomenon. Because there is simply no other place quite like it on Earth. Over 30 countries have actually traveled to this exact fort in France to film their own versions of the show. From Scandinavia and Russia to the US, the UK, and Morocco, the striking silhouette of Fort Boyard has been broadcast into living rooms all over the globe, making it one of the most recognizable monuments in the world. So here's a final thought for you. Isn't it profoundly ironic that a monument to war, born from immense political ego in billions of euros, completely failed in its original mission, yet found its true purpose as a playground for our entertainment? It really leaves us to wonder how many other impossible failures of history are sitting out there right now, just waiting for the right lens, the right creative mind to transform them into legendary successes.